Hey, listen to this. I'm Dr. William Boone. And I've been talking a lot. This is the end of the year 2024. And 2024, there's a lot of things going on in this nation that has our nation and this other nations of the world reeling. I mean, the Olivet Discourse of Matthew 24 is definitely happening right now. And it's in Luke 21. It's in, Mark 13. It's all over there. The Olivet Discourse, that's called. I'm not going to emphasize it very much in my talk with you now. However, it's there. And there are things to get out of it that would benefit us. But I'm talking about us who believe in the Bible as the word that validates how to handle things that are going on in the world. For he said that, take heed that no man deceive you. And this is what he's saying. Jesus is talking to, again, disciples. And these are people who are serious about God. And I'm reaching out to you that way too. And in verse 4 of Matthew 24, it says, and Jesus answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. Tell me if that's not going on now, which some are afraid we're on the verge of a third world war. Some are accusing the elected president as one that's going to do that. And yet the present president is bombing, giving weapons, serious weapons to one of the countries in Europe right now at a level that could cause an escalation of the war. And yet we say the elected president is going to be the one that does it. It's nonsense like that that is a scandal to our generation. And he says, and see that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. So in other words, there are people who are troubled by all of that. He said, you who are serious about me, don't be troubled by that. And then he begins to list some things that are going to occur in this end time scenario. He says this, watch, in verse 7 of Matthew 24. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there should be, famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. What? We can identify those things happening everywhere. Some are waiting for the big one on the West Coast to happen, but it's happening in other developing nations around the world. There's clear famines and inclement weather, pestilences. And I want to be clear with you about it. God's judgment of his people in the beginning of creation was inclement weather. It was the flood of Noah. You can find the same kind of judgment that Elijah, when I read to you in James chapter 5, Elijah prayed that it would not rain, and it didn't rain. And then he prayed again and it began to rain. But that was a judgment that one man's prayer life caused to come upon a whole nation, a famine, inclement weather. God deals with nations through weather. I talked about that in a couple of teachings ago. I went into that. And of course, you can talk about Joel's book. Same thing, inclement weather. And we're having it today. I've made this point before. If you follow the pathway of the hurricanes, some of the tornadoes, they follow the pathway of the Trail of Tears. What we did to the Cherokee Indians and those natives. We did it to the whole nation of them. But some of those states that have awful weather conditions, there's a correlation between the nation, our government making treaties with Native Americans that 1,000 of them, we didn't keep any of them. That literally sounds fantastical to some. No, we did. We didn't do it. And so now they get a stipend from us. We didn't do that to the blacks that served in the Civil War, and they gave them their paycheck to hold for them while they're in the war. Give it to their families if they get killed. Did we do it? Nope. We squandered all the money. Our government squandered that money, called the Freedmen's Bank. And on and on. It's stuff like that in the history of our nation where there's judgment on our nation. There'll never not be judgment. With a peace that passes understanding, you can only going to get that inside. The escalation of external things, unless some senator or some legislator, like what began to happen in certain state apologies for slavery. We started it. Oklahoma did it for burning down the Black Wall Street there in the Greenwood district of Tulsa, Oklahoma. The Oklahoma, on the caveat that there would be no restitution. What kind of apology is that? But we put up with nonsense like that. Not God. You're getting judged by it. The family who initiated that, I don't know who they are. The people who joined in with it, your family lines are reaping havoc over that because he's called God the judge of all. God's judging you. Some people that there are scriptures in the Bible where God renders judgment that shows from within there's generational illnesses like diabetes, cancer, things like mental illnesses that family lines that have in their line, incest that happens when there's mental children are born with mental problems. It's because of incest. There's judgments of God on behavior that he said not to do. Just because you're not a Christian don't mean you don't experience the judgments. Christians are supposed to shape it out and get it straight. Ezekiel 3, chapters 3 and Ezekiel 33 says, if you see a person in sin, you don't warn them. Like, I know a situation going on where this one person has committed adultery. And they haven't gone to that person and told them, you're in sin. The Bible says if you know it and you don't do it, Ezekiel in chapters 33, if they die in their sins, God said, I'm going to hold it to your account. Wow. But, keep on button. See? Sure, there are ramifications to the sin and the behavior and what you may lose. You haven't lost anything unless you've lost it with God. You do not have the favor of God, even if it's your relative. I heard one person say, well, if it's against my relative, I'll never expose them. You better expose them to God. You better get them to repent. I mean, even our law on child molestation. I mean, what happened to one major Christian organization is that the son didn't expose his dad who had problem with these younger kids. And he lost the whole movement because of it. And it was legally a problem. So he's got to face the law of God and the law of man. I mean, let me tell you something. God's the judge of all. He's going to judge you presently. He's going to judge you ultimately. I'm trying to help you right now with all this. So here, for those of you who've just come on to listen to me, I'm looking at what he said will happen. Kingdoms shall rise against kingdoms. There shall be famines and pestilences, earthquakes in diverse places. And these are the beginning of sorrows. And it says, then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted and shall kill you. And you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. It happened to Israel, actually. But he's saying it to those who have accepted Jesus as Lord. You're going to go through something. They that live godly will suffer persecution. And then shall many be offended and shall betray one another and shall hate one another. The cancel culture. I heard a young lady say to their parents, because they voted for Trump, you will not see your grandchildren. Don't call me. Don't come to see me. You're no longer a part of my life. Woman, you didn't make yourself a part of your parents' life. You can conduct the behavior of your parents, and that's okay. And you dishonor what God says. Children, obey your parents in the Lord. Children, honor your parents. You're going to dishonor them, and God said to honor them? Oh, man, you got stuff going on in your life that's undescribable because God's dealing with you. And the great sham could be is that he's judging you, all this stuff going wrong in your life. you got mental illness and stuff that's going on in your life, God doesn't tell you it's him. If you won't somehow give you grace and you're listening to me now, and you say, oh my God, I need to straighten it out with my parents. I still don't like that president. You don't have the right to not like someone. God says in Psalm 75, you ever read it? Do you read the Bible? He said, I'm the judge. I put one up, I'll take another down. And that leaders, it is a judgment upon people to make them rejoice or to make them mourn. What's our nation doing now? That is the kind of leader that behooves our nation, what we got right now. I saw this president lie. Let's say, oh, this guy lied. I saw this president say, I'm not going to do fracking. And he shut down the Alaskan pipeline. First thing, signed, pen order right away. Did what he said. I'm not going to forgive my son. I'm not going to pardon him right away. The mainstream media don't say anything about it. You are a participant in the deception of the nation. God isn't looking over it. He's not going to forgive you for it until you say, I'm sorry. So what's going on in your life is on a very high level. And if you don't find somebody like me that would talk you through this stuff, and look, it ain't psychobabble. You gotta obey. Yeah, I got to go on. I'm reading Matthew 24. Kind of serious word here, and I'm kind of frowning and hollering and all that. But it says in verse 12, and because iniquity shall abound. The word iniquity is actually the Greek word which means lawlessness, because lawlessness shall abound. Derek Prince, a scholar, a Greek scholar, says the most iniquitous group are terrorists. He says that could be actually translated, because terrorism shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. And behind a lot of the thing that's going on is not only terrorists, but terrorist behavior. Meaning that people that don't yield to the law, there are tons of people that don't do that. There are organizations that don't do it. They're professors because they can't get fired because they have tenure. Tell you one thing, not in Jerry Falwell's university at Liberty, they don't give you tenure. Why? So if you get off out of line with the basic principles that govern that school, you get fired. You won't get a contract renewed. Okay? That's why you don't see that nonsense going on in that school like that. But where these professors get tenure, think they can just say anything they want and lead the children under their care to something that's not foundational to how they were raised by their parents. Yeah, they're doing all of that. God isn't ignoring it, though. There's no peace in those people's homes, in their family lives that do that. They're angry. They don't even know why they're angry. Their anger is their disconnect with God. They don't get it. I'm reading here. But he that endures to the end, the same shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. So look, the gospel, meaning guys like George Whitefield, who is credited for one of the great awakenings in America, yet he was from England. But he was a soul winner, but he preached on a national scale. You need it now. So look, this gospel shall be preached. So we need a preacher to tell you the truth, not a president. A president is not a resource person. A preacher is. There's schools of preachers that don't know. I know if I talk to the president now, if I talk to President Trump. I don't have to be president. I don't have to know politics. But I know the eternal principles that undergird it. I could list 5 things that would help him in his presidency. I could have done it with Biden too. Doesn't matter, Clinton. Look at his record. The past presidents, Obama, I could have done it with him. He's intelligent, but we're not talking about intelligence. We're talking about principles that undergird the kingdom of God and how our nation works. And what are the great values that God ascribes to existence? That's where I'm at. biblical worldview. When you look at ultimate judgments and how God judges nations, it's not on achievement. It's not on volume, amount, size, money, none of those things. And God says every man's work is going to have to stand the test of fire to see what sort it is. And he names it: gold, silver, diamonds, wood, hay, or stubble. 3 of them are consumed by fire. 3 of them are become excellent by fire. The quality is revealed. See, and the fiery trials that you're going through, you're proof that your values are not bibliocentric, because you cater in because you lose your job, or because you lose your money, or because you all of that. You're not principled in the Bible. You're gonna have to answer to God for it. So you lose twice. Look, if you're a liar, a deceiver, a manipulator, you're not happy inside. You probably take something to get to sleep. See, some of you probably look like you're like 60, but you look like you're 80. It's the motions of sin, man. That's an oversimplification, but it's the lying, the manipulation, the deceiving. You don't have the values of Christ. And I'm reading right out of here. So look, let's go to Matthew 6. And I want to really say a couple things to you. Starting with the Lord's Prayer. This is part of what I began reading and talking to you about in Matthew 5 of what is called the Sermon on the Mount. I just really gave you one verse in verse 3 in my last talk, blessed are the poor in spirit. And I said that was the hungry, meaning that you have a lot of information, but you have a poverty spirit. And meaning that the information you've gained isn't the person you are becoming. Because that information it could be earthly, it could be sensual, it could be fleshly. But if it's revelation, one person says it this way: revelation is the gem that buys a generation. Revelation is what is revealed from God to you. That's eternal, fixed, uniform, universal. Yeah. What are you going to do? So, yeah. So you're not hungry for the right things. So, and the next verse 4 says in Matthew 5, blessed are they that mourn, for they should be comforted. And I mean, guess what? He's not talking about pity. He's talking about you who in your heart, you're not living your life for yourself. You're looking at the conditions of the nation, and in prayer, you're mourning over the rebellion. You're mourning over the division. You're mourning over the cheating, the lying, the stealing, what banks are doing, what insurance companies are doing. All these cheating entities. You mourn over them. God's going to give you comfort because you know he has it. See, God has the earth. He hasn't lost control of his creation. Let me say it. I said this is kind of ghetto way of saying it, but God is a bad boy. Look, he's definitely in control, see, of everything. But let me give you now in this Out of the Discord course, down at verse 8 of chapter 6. This is all part of it. Be not ye therefore like unto, this is verse 8, them, for your Father knoweth what things ye have need of before ye ask. Now, some of you may not realize that, but I'm going to mark this in my Bible right now. I got a new Bible, but I'm reading out of the King James right now. That word, before you ask. Where can you go from my presence? Yes, see what I'm saying? That's what it says in the Bible. If you descend into the deep, I am there. If you ascend up into the heavens, I am there. If you go into the far reaches of the earth, I am there. In other words, God already knows in advance everything going on in your life. So bless you. Look, be encouraged. For the joy of the Lord is your strength. Is my prayer for you. God bless.